This is James Corbett of CorbettReport.com with your Sunday update for this 10th day of October 2010. And now for the real news. Startling new footage has been released this week by the International Center for 9/11 Studies, a group that has obtained hundreds of hours of video from the National Institute of Science and Technology, representing the video evidence that was examined for NIST's investigation of the collapse of the World Trade Center on September 11, 2001. In the latest video to be released from that data, 3 firemen who had been preparing to enter the building can be seen discussing secondary explosions that took place in the World Trade Center after the planes hit.
What happened?
We was in an explosion. We was in the lobby and the third explosion, the whole lobby collapsed on us.
You're kidding
What was
me.
it like? What was it like?
Horrible.
It's like hell. You don't want to know.
The whole building just collapsed on us inside the lobby.
Is that a secondary explosion?
Yes, it was.
That was the
Planet, probably. Yeah, definitely secondary explosion. Because we was inside waiting to go upstairs, and on the way upstairs, the whole fucking plane blew, and we just collapsed on everybody inside the lobby.
similar to the first tower coming down, secondary.
I don't know about the first one, but I know the second one was terrible. Then there was a third one too after that one.
Third explosion after that.
That's right. Everybody was inside the building, waiting to go upstairs, and they just let loose. Everything just let loose inside the building.
So what you told me is that there was the plane or whatever hit the building, then a secondary explosion.
It was like 3 explosions after that. We came in after the fire. We came when the fire was going on already. We was in the staging area inside the building, waiting to go upstairs. Then they exploded. The whole lobby collapsed on the lobby inside.
This latest video only adds to an already impressive body of eyewitness testimony and recorded evidence of explosions before the plane impact.
Yes, I was right there. I was down in the basement, came down, all of a sudden the elevator blew up, smoke. I dragged the guy out, his skin was hanging off, and I dragged him out and I helped him out to the ambulance.
As well as explosions after the plane impacts, but before the collapses.
If you could plan, the absolute worst case scenario high-rise mission, you had it on 9/11. There were numerous secondary explosions taking place in that building. There were continuous explosions.
And explosions taking place during the collapses themselves.
At that time, maybe 45 minutes into the taping that we were doing, which was maybe a half hour after, it was an explosion. It was way up where the fire was, and the whole building at that point bellied out in flames, and everybody ran.
We made it outside. We made it about a block.
We made it at least 2 blocks, and we started running. Floor by floor, it started popping out.
It was if they had detonated.
Yeah,
If they
detonated,
were planned to take down a building. Boom, 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 boom.
All the way down. I was watching it and running.
Although all of this evidence was available to NIST researchers, there is no discussion of it in the 9/11 Commission report, and NIST admits that they did not test for explosive compounds on residue in the WTC remains. Hartford Advocate reporter Jennifer Abel confronted NIST spokesman Michael Neuman about this error in the NIST investigation. "What about that letter where NIST said it didn't look for evidence of explosives?" Abel asked. "Right, because there was no evidence of that," Neuman responded. "But how can you know there's no evidence if you didn't look for it first? If you're looking for something that isn't there, you're wasting your time and the taxpayers' money," Neuman concluded. NIST, however, broke requirement NPFA 921 of the National Fire Investigation Guidelines, which calls for testing for just such residues. In the report on WTC 7, NIST also claims that there was no evidence for explosions in World Trade Center Building 7, citing a lack of audio evidence for such explosions. This, too, is in direct contradiction of recorded evidence easily available to NIST.
Yeah, here's one of the guys who can tell you I'm okay, all right? Here, hold on. You want to call your mother or something? You gotta get back from here. You know that, you gotta get back. All right? Don't worry about me. You need to make calls right now. All right,
Curiously, Footage of the WTC-7 collapse released by NIST to the International Center for 9/11 Studies has no sound prior to or during the collapse of the building, with the sound suddenly and mysteriously being restored after the collapse has taken place. It remains to be seen whether these latest revelations will prompt the American citizenry to demand a full congressional inquiry into the deliberate falsehoods and omission of evidence in the NIST investigation, or whether a new public investigation will be ordered based on this readily available evidence. NIST has yet to comment on the latest video release. In other news, the United States has been forced to apologize this week for government-sponsored studies on Guatemalan prisoners in the 1940s, which knowingly and deliberately infected subjects with syphilis in order to test the effectiveness of penicillin.
Professor Reverby, what were American doctors doing in Central America in 1946, and what were they doing to their subjects?
They were trying to figure out whether penicillin could be used to treat people before their syphilis infection took hold and had been already measured. So if you think about it, it's a little bit like the morning after pill, which you take when you think you've had unprotected sex and don't want to get pregnant. They were trying to figure out whether penicillin would work for syphilis. But they needed a pool of infection, and so they went to Guatemala because prostitution was legal in Guatemala, and it was also legal to take a prostitute into a prison for sexual services for prisoners.
So they were using prisoners as basically their stock of observed subjects?
Right. They started off doing prisoners, and when not enough infection was created with the prostitutes, they moved on to actually giving the men syphilis itself.
Particularly disturbing are the tactics which researchers use to infect the patients when trysts with infected prostitutes fail to result in the prisoners actually contracting the disease.
So that's when they moved to this system of trying to abrade these men and women's hands, and then on their cheeks, and then with the men actually on their genitalia, and to pour the inoculum on them. And it required them to literally pull back the man's front of his penis, to hold a cotton pledgelet with the inoculum in place for 1.5 to 2 hours.
Now, many are noting the historical parallels between this experiment and the Tuskegee Experiment, in which hundreds of poor black sharecroppers were left untreated for syphilis for decades in an attempt to monitor the spread of the disease.
This letter, sent to each man before his spinal tap, claimed it was a very special free treatment.
Some time ago, you were given a thorough examination. And since that time, we hope you have gotten a great deal of treatment for bad blood. You will now be given your last chance to get a second examination. This examination is a very special one, and after it is finished, you will be given a special treatment if it is believed you are
in a condition to stand it. Remember, this is your last chance for a special free treatment.
The men were told that the spinal taps were a treatment. That shows you some of the deception and deceit involved in the study. And these are physicians saying this, so that it has a certain power and authority of physicians saying this.
Less talked about are the dozens of other declassified and fully admitted programs to use humans as guinea pigs for biological testing without the subject's knowledge or consent. In the 1950s, the US military infamously subjected soldiers to multiple nuclear blast shock waves to test the effects of radiation on humans. In the 1950s and 60s, the US Army dispersed bacteria throughout New York and 30 other major cities in order to test the spread of biological materials. Deaths resulted in some of the cases.
February 1956. In the heart of New York, Operation Big City was underway. A Ford Mercury, specially adapted with a hidden exhaust pipe, pumped out bacteria onto the streets of Manhattan. Undercover agents entered the city's subway system, their cases equipped with tiny motors which covertly dispersed the bacteria Bacillus globuli. 10 years later, the Army returned. Light bulbs filled with bacteria were dropped in front of trains and down ventilation shafts to test how far the bacteria would spread through the subway system. One of the earliest experiments had fatal consequences. In 1951, the Army sprayed the bacteria Serratia marcescens over San Francisco. 11 hospital patients developed a mysterious infection, and within days, Edward Nevin died from an illness caused by the same bacteria.
In 1996, it was revealed that the Center for Disease Control had injected thousands of babies in African countries and 1,500 Black and Hispanic babies in inner-city Los Angeles with experimental vaccines without the consent of the baby's parents, resulting in numerous deaths. Look for no formal apology for these and the dozens of other admitted biological tests on unwitting subjects by the US government. Finally this week, in a further sign that the foreclosure crisis in the United States is a consolidation of power by an elite group of bankers who can break laws and steal trillions of dollars with absolute immunity, audio emerged this week of a 9/11 call made by Nancy Jacobini of Orange County, Florida, who believed her house was being broken into.
You hear somebody trying to open the front door?
Yes, yes.
Ma'am?
My alarm is going off.
Okay.
He's in the house.
He's in the house?
Yes.
Where are you at?
I'm locked in the bathroom.
After 10 minutes of panic spent locked in the bathroom, it was discovered that the intruder was an agent of J.P. Morgan Chase, who had illegally broken into the house in order to change her locks, despite the fact that her house was not in foreclosure. According to Carl Denninger of the Market Ticker blog, this is just one of a series of confirmed reports of bank-hired agents breaking into houses that are not in foreclosure. That's illegal, Denninger writes. Until the bank has a court order giving them possession, they don't have possession, and they have no right to be there. Last Wednesday, Attorney General Eric Holder announced the Justice Department would begin a probe into mortgage bank foreclosure practices. So far, GMAC, Bank of America, and JP Morgan have all announced that they have frozen foreclosures in 23 states as a result of these illegal practices. Now, please go to CorbettReport.com to download the audio MP3 of episode 152 of the Corbett Report, Crashes of Convenience, United 553, in which we examine the mysterious crash of the Watergate plane.